1 year, give or take. 44 reviews of random, obscure, and straight-up bad movies. 13 collabs with incredible content creators. An evolving theater layout, complete with a fully stocked snack bar. 1 knowledgeable avatar, without legs. Hey, that's a sensitive subject. At least I'm wearing pants. This is Trivial Theater. Hey folks, welcome to my year anniversary Q&A, chocked full of random questions from some fucking awesome people on Twitter. Now, hold up, that's far too formal a setting for a chill Q&A. Welcome to the behind the scenes of Trivial Theater. Our first question up is a little bit of an icebreaker for me as it deals with some straight up great trivia from one of my favorite movies. Chris Hogan asks, how did they make the dinosaur noises in Jurassic Park? So for the raptors alone, they actually had quite a few different things. They used a horse breathing at one point, they used the sound of an angry goose, and for the one part they actually had a slowed down recording of turtles mating, which I think is pretty awesome. The fact that they had the foresight and the intuition on it to take all these noises and to mix them all together and to make it into something unique. Alright, next up, the excellent I Understood That Reference podcast asks, what made you make the leap to making YouTube videos? Well, I gotta say that it was kind of a combination of things. I'm a content creator by day for small businesses, and I really wanted to be able to up my skills. I also just wanted an outside creative outlet, and YouTube seemed like an okay place to at least try. I was going to give myself about 6 months and kind of see how I felt about it, and if I was doing well, I was going to stay, and if I wasn't, I was going to go. I really didn't have any goals specifically, but I had such a good time and I met just so many cool people. I stayed because it was fun, and it's been an excellent ride ever since. Why not a podcast? I am an incredibly visual person, and to try and explain some of the things, especially in the bad movies that I review, in a way that was anything but actually showing what happened, because some of them are just so crazy. I mean, you talk about a bed that eats people, and I think you have to see it in order to understand it. How far into development did you come up with your avatar? And follow-up to that was, did you always have one in mind? What avatar? I mean, this is what I look like all the time. What are you talking about? No, anyway. Well, it was a lot of trial and error when I started, and it was about a 3-month process from when I first decided I wanted to do YouTube to actually getting my first video uploaded. And I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do. Initially, I was just going to do a voiceover, and then I had this really stupid idea about doing it headless, so the camera would cut off right at my neck because I really didn't want to be on camera. But luckily I had a friend talk me out of that. Have there been things you've come across that have made you think, yeah, I'm really glad I started this? Oh yeah, tons. I can't... There's no easy way for me to say all the stuff that I've learned and found while doing YouTube. I mean, the people have been amazing, and a lot of them are people that ask questions here, and I have been so much better because I've gotten to know so many of the people here, and just a creative outlet. I'd like to think that my stuff has made people smile, and both because of its creativity and just because of its weirdness, and I wouldn't have had that if I didn't come on board and do this. The next question is, do you still get the same joy from movies even when you have to break them down and take notes? A lot of the movies that I do here are not ones that I've seen previously, or if I have, it's been literally years. So oftentimes, if they're ones I like, I'll go back and watch them again. And actually, I am one of those people that goes back and watches movies a couple of times anyway, so if it's one I really like in the theaters, I have a tendency to go back and watch it twice. My first time is normally breaking down effects, and just kind of story and plot and stuff, and then the second time is more for enjoyment. I guess what I do now in taking notes in movies, I did previously. The only real difference is it takes me like 3.5 hours to watch an 1.5-hour movie because I'm constantly stopping and taking notes or going back and looking for things that I want to include in my reviews. Chris from Strange Monkey Reviews asks, is there a so bad it's good film that you could never get tired of? Actually, there are a couple. The Blob from the 60s is one of those perennial favorites that I actually grew up on. I don't know why, it's just the history behind it, the way that they did the effects, just all of it. It's so campy and weird that it just stands out to me as one of those really great ones. Rocky Horror Picture Show. I don't even know if you consider that to be a bad movie per se. It's become such a cult classic, but it's one of those, just the music and the story and the reputation it has. And I've had the chance to see it live a couple of times, and it's such a fun experience. I guess it colors one that I could see all the time. And I mean, Tim Curry is he's got fabulous legs, I gotta tell ya. In that same vein, Samurai Cop is another one that I love. Every time I watch it, there's something new to see, and it just has so much going for it, and I don't know, I just really love it. Alright, Ryan from What Were You Watching asks, if you had to enjoy dinner with 3 movie characters, who would they be and why? Well, that's a really good question, and I'm afraid that my answer is going to come across as a little bit of a cheat. I'd have to choose Emperor Palpatine from the original prequel and sequel trilogies. And I just imagine them sitting around a table and all being massively disappointed with each other because of the way that things turned out. Like, everything seemed like it was going so well for, like, prequel Palpatine, and then Emperor Palpatine from the original trilogy gets, like, thrown down a chute, and he's all like, this sucks. And then, obviously, sequel trilogy, Palpatine is all just kind of gross and attached to machinery and stuff, and his eyes are all funky, and he's just like zombie-esque. And I just imagine like Emperor Palpatine from the original trilogy just like sitting there between like Grandpa sequel Palpatine and prequel younger Palpatine, and he's just trying to mediate between them, and they're just like fighting over these weren't the way that the plans were supposed to go, and why did this end up this way? And I don't know, it's just where my head goes. I guess morbid curiosity over how that conversation would go would be pretty fucking awesome. Pulp Cereal asks, what's it like to be a cartoon? I'm not quite sure I understand the question. What do you mean exactly? I can tell you that there are times I feel a tad flat, but overall I'm a very animated person, and yeah, I think that's really all I can say about that. Okay, up next, Anthony from Silver Screen Analysis asks, what was your first theater experience? Well, it was a re-release, at least for the theater that I went to a lot as a kid, of An American Tail, which was a mouse called Fievel. It sticks with me, I think, because it scared the shit out of me as a kid. There's a scene where this giant homemade monster thing comes from behind these locked gates, and it scares all the cats in New York onto a boat and gets them out of the city, and they break into song, and it's a really cool scene. And really, actually, looking back at it, some pretty awesome early effects. I think it came out in the mid-'80s, but that thing coming out of those gates, it just scared the ever-loving piss out of me. I think I actually screamed in the theater and scared everybody around me, but anyway, deep-seated fears there. I'm not sure where that shows up later, but you know. Okay, next up, favorite 80s comedy. I gotta go Spaceballs. They're just, Mel Brooks is just one of those guys that he hit his prime in the 80s, I think in the 70s and 80s, between Blazing Saddles and all those, and I just love Spaceballs. It's just such a great movie. Every part of it, everything from the punny dialogue to the cheesy effects to the spoof ripoffs, and the fact that you can still look at it today and still get the points, as compared to so many spoofs that are so specific to a certain set of movies and a certain time. I guess too, another favorite comedy is Blues Brothers. Again, it's such an over-the-top, crazy thing, and I don't know where it sits for most people, but for me it's got great music, it's funny, it's irrelevant, John Belushi is just incredible, and Dan Aykroyd is great. Like Carrie Fisher, when she shows up, the fact that they don't give away what she is until later in the movie, and she just, you know, shows up and blows the shit out of where Elwood lives. I love it, and the fact that Elwood gives his address as Wrigley Field, and the bad guys go there. It's so awesome. I mean, it's such a great movie, and the mall scene where they just drive around and, you know, destroy everything, and just the level of destruction and the amount of cars that are wrecked. It's just awesome. Okay, so up next, an actor you wouldn't want to miss a performance from. Emma Stone is a big one for me. I kind of love everything she does. My final ones would be Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. And most of what they've done has been Edgar Wright stuff, which I love Edgar Wright. But the two of them together, they're just the perfect combination. Alright, next question. Favorite at-home movie snack or drink? I am a chocolate fan from way back, so anything chocolate is kind of my go-to. I'm also a big breadstick fan. I'll buy a pizza just to get breadsticks. The cheesier the better. So I guess chocolate, not together, but like chocolate or like breadsticks. Drink, anything alcoholic, cider, sour beers, wine, mixed drinks, whatever. You know, if you're gonna chill, you might as well have a good drink to go along with it. Alright, two actors you want to see in a buddy comedy. They've been together, but I really think Channing Tatum is funny. And maybe that's just because I didn't expect him to actually be funny. But, like 21 Jump Street was just kind of it was surprising how good he was. And I'm not a huge Jonah Hill fan, but again, they seem like they play off each other really well. So I really enjoy him. I would love to see them in another movie. So the last question is, the most clearly bad movie you actually love. There are so many, and I've been asked the question a couple times, but I really do want to answer it every time because there are actually quite a few movies that do sit in that realm of movies that I do love for quite a wide variety of reasons, even though they're considered bad. One of the biggest ones for me is one called No Retreat, No Surrender. It was a 1980s movie starring Jean-Claude Van Damme, of all people. But everything about it is so over the top. Like, the emotion is so over the top, the action is so over the top. They pull in Bruce Lee at one point, like a fake Bruce Lee guy, and it's just, there's so much about it that's awesome. And I say that about a lot of movies, and you could probably start a drinking game for as many times as I say it. But the thing that makes these movies awesome, and especially ones like this, is just the amount of passion that is behind them, and the way that they chew the scenery when they're on camera. It's one of those things that is so endearing about some of these movies. Miss Perfect Paradox asks, why oh why haven't you done the worst movie of all time, Quest for Fire? I haven't done it yet, but because you mentioned it, it's on my to-do list for the next month. So keep an eye out because it'll be coming down the pipeline pretty soon. She also asks, top 3 worst movies of all time. Now worst for me is one of those things, and I know that it's very subjective when it comes to folks, but I honestly feel like a movie that has the budget, has the star power behind it, those actually make for the worst movies because of the fact that they have all that going for them. And it's oftentimes more decisions and egos that trip up a movie in that respect than it does actual budget or ability or whatever it might be. So I guess the top 3 for me would be something like Indiana Jones 4, just because they brought back so much great stuff and it was so iconic, and I can't handle how bad it is. They could have done literally anything, but they just chose the one thing that they shouldn't do. Also 2017's Mummy with Tom Cruise, just because, again, it was a case where they tried to run before they could crawl, and I love the classic Universal monsters, and to see it fucked up so badly just makes me sad. God, it could have been so awesome. And as far as the third one, I don't even know. I mean, I could say the Star Wars prequels. I can see what George Lucas was going for, and I can appreciate what he was aiming for, but the trilogy itself just falls down on so many levels. Alright, next up, Jacob from Jacob Anders Reviews asks, is this your first YouTube channel? Because you came out of the gate swinging with some legit, polished, high-quality content. I really appreciate that. Yes, this is my first channel. I've been an avid viewer for a while, and I guess I come in with a set of skills. I have a certain set of skills. I know a lot about After Effects, but it's something where I really wanted to learn some more, so that's part of the reason that I really wanted to get into doing something that was maybe a little bit more animated. That, and I'm absolutely god-awful on camera. But yeah, I appreciate the compliment. Do I play video games at all? If so, do you like bad ones like you do with movies, Deadly Premonition, all the 90s FMV games? No, I don't play video games. I think the last one I actually played was when I was a kid, but like there was the original NES system. It was like a broadcast one that you had to, I don't even think blowing in the cartridges really worked all that well. Okay, up next, what is your favorite bad movie? Let's see, I guess Hard Ticket to Hawaii is just a weird-ass movie. They employed Playboy models, for God's sake, as their main actors, and it's just one of those that's just kind of fun and different. Mystics of Bali 2 is just the effects from the 80s. There's just something about 80s effects. It's just, oh my god, it's crazy. It's just, this head flies around and it's just, I can't describe it other than to show you just because it's so weird. I guess one other kind of what I would consider to be bad set of movies, and they're not associated per se, but the one day I was looking through, I guess I was looking online at streaming and I ran across all these movies called Escape Room, and I just had this wild hair to just like sit down and watch them all, so I did, and they were all fucking awful. I will still go back and watch them just because, I don't know, I guess I'm a glutton for punishment. I think most people would say that anyway because of my taste in movies to reviews. Okay, next up, what made you decide to create your channel? That's actually a really good question. I had a lot of inspiration from the likes of Red Letter Media, and there's a channel called I Hate Everything that does a series called Search for the Worst. I found those at a time when I was trying to rediscover things about myself, and they just really struck a chord. So the idea for good bad movies, I've always been a fan of good bad ones, and it just kind of hit me at the right time, I guess. So a lot of my inspiration kind of comes from those. Ghostie asks, what movie do you think you've watched the most? Actually it's kind of a combination of movies. There's not one I'd say that I've watched the most. I grew up on the Star Wars trilogy, which probably ranks pretty high. As far as individual movies, anything done by Mel Brooks, Spaceballs, Blazing Saddles, Silent Movie, those are all just classically good ones that are just amazing. There's a lot of classic movies that I absolutely love. Freaks, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, let's see, what else? You can't go wrong with the Cornetto trilogy, or Scott Pilgrim, or Baby Driver. They're all good, and I watch them pretty frequently. I actually need to expand out a bit more. And Ryan from Nerdy Blurb TV asks, okay, you watch a lot of crap movies, but is it in the name of research, or do you truly enjoy the cringe? I actually really enjoy the cringe. I grew up on a lot of the classic 50s and 60s B-movies, and I also, in that same realm, love Mystery Science Theater 3000 quite a lot. And to have an appreciation of good movies, I feel like, at least for me, I have to have an appreciation of the bad. You know, what fails in a bad movie and succeeds in a good movie is kind of one of the things that separates them. Had they made one decision, it would have made a difference. So yeah, and I think there's a lot of passion in bad movies. There is a person behind them that has a vision and may not have the money or may not have the expertise. And that can be the thing that differs between a good movie and a bad movie. You do have to change the way that you look at a movie. I mean, comparing, say, The Birds and comparing it to Birdemic, a movie that was inspired by The Birds, it's the same basis, but two entirely different ways of execution, whether you're talking from a money perspective or an intent perspective or a scripting perspective or whatever. Ryan then asks, what is your all-time favorite craptastic movie? So there's one from the 60s, I think it is. It's called The Creeping Terror. Basically, the villain is a walking carpet that kind of eats people through a hole down by where the actor's legs would be. And it's one of those movies that I think that you really have to see just to understand how ever-lovingly strange it is. And even for the time, you see these people trying to not look like they're shoving themselves through this giant hole. It's great. I would highly suggest it if you can find it. Okay, up next, Jared from JBuck Studios asks, what movie ruined your childhood? You know, I can't really say there was one. I'm not like a fan of any one fandom that says, oh my god, this reboot or this particular movie, I just undid everything that I loved from my childhood. I will say, some of the Disney remakes, they feel like unneeded, I guess, more than anything else. Especially The Lion King. So I'm not going to say that it ruined my childhood, but it did, I guess, made me reevaluate a little bit what I loved about the animated original. Jared asks next, the worst theater experience. I remember going to see one of the Night at the Museum movies at this broke-ass theater. In fact, it actually closed about 6 months later. But like the roof leaked and the heating was shitty, and I remember I was bound and determined that I was gonna see that film. I wasn't gonna miss it, because for whatever reason, I don't even remember what it was. but I remember pacing back and forth because it was really, really, really cold outside, and the heater didn't work. Then I had like a winter coat on, and I had like a sweater on, and I made it all the way through that son of a bitching movie, but I don't think I even paid attention to half the movie, and they actually gave me vouchers to come back, and it's like, I'll pass. It got closed about 6 months later, and then I think it got demoed not that long after, but was it worth freezing my ass off for? Probably not. Who is your dream collaboration? So when I started my channel, we all have the people that we look at and say, I really like what they do. One of those is Red Letter Media. I love the way that they approach things, and I think they'd be just a shit ton of fun to sit down and watch a couple of shitty movies with. Another one is, the channel's called I Hate Everything, and he does a variety of things, but one of his more constant series is a thing called The Search for the Worst. And he just seems like he'd be a really cool guy to sit down and just watch a movie with. But I've actually done a couple of dream collabs thus far, and one of them was with you. JB, you were so much fun to work with, and I love your style, and the endings explained poorly was just a shit ton of fun to do. Another dream collab I actually got to do, despite being as small as I am, was with Lord Vega, and we just did that one recently, and that was a lot of fun too. Next question, why YouTube, and what's your end goal? I guess YouTube because I really enjoy movies and I wanted to try my hand at reviewing movies. I don't think that I have any great insight as far as movies go. It's more just kind of picking out really random little shit and making fun of it. Kind of a snarky take on movies that I really enjoy. And my end goal, I guess, I'm here to have fun. If I grow, great. If I don't, yeah, I'm okay. As long as I can make people smile and make my subs happy and can enjoy it myself, that's all my little avatar heart needs. Alright, next question. Was it actually a ghost in the background of 3 men and a baby? Well, from a trivial perspective, I can tell you that yes, it was a cardboard cutout of, I believe it was Ted Danson, but from a mythological standpoint, it was a ghost. Alright, Jared's last question. What movie conspiracy is the most interesting? There's a movie conspiracy for almost every movie out there. But I gotta say the ones surrounding The Shining are probably the most interesting to me. There's a documentary called, I think it's Room 237, and it's incredibly interesting. I mean, there's some real wackadoo theories in there, and I think wackadoo is actually a technical term. But there are some really interesting ones, some that are more probable than others. But there's a bunch in there about clues that Kubrick supposedly left about him directing the moon landing, which, I don't know, it strikes me as a really interesting thing. I mean, and Kubrick himself was he put so much symbolism into his movies. If you're gonna pick a director to have a conspiracy theory about, he's probably the best one to choose in that respect. Up next, Jay asks, what's a movie you've seen that's so bad it's good? Another one that I absolutely love as far as really good bad movies is UHF with Weird Al Yankovic. How can you not love it? I mean, the fact that they took what is basically a glorified public access station and the variety of random shows that they have listed. I wanted to see half of them when I first saw it, and I still do. It's got early Michael Richardson in there and kind of pre-Kramer, and the romance with him and his mop is more true than most romances in movies today. There's more feeling and more heart. And to see Weird Al Yankovic all done up like Rambo, it still sits as one of those moments in movies that it sticks with me. Every time I see Rambo, I think of Weird Al Yankovic, and I don't know what that says. But Mr. Snowflake asks, what's your best favorite bad film? Well, I actually have quite a few, and since this question shows up quite a bit, I'm kind of just picking a whole bunch that I really, really enjoy. And you, Mr. Snowflake, get to know my Italian favorites. There are actually 2 of them, and they're both kind of superhero movies, like superhero spy movies. One is called Argo Man, and it's like a James Bond thing, but he has like superpowers, and he's like completely unbeatable. It's just a great film. It's so much fun. The other one is Supersonic Man. It's got Superman roots, and there's a scene in that where he actually lifts up what's supposed to be like a roller, like one of the big industrial rollers, and it's clearly made of wood, and it's moments like that just make it such a great bad movie. He asks next, First film you remember watching. Again, I got to ask this question a couple times, so there are a couple that I remember from really early on, and they're all kind of scary ones, actually. The original Gremlins, for some reason, I think it was because it scared the shit out of me so much. I remember going really close to the TV screen and, just having the pants scared off me because there was a jump scare of some sort, and I just ran away screaming, and my family still makes fun of me to this day because I had such a visceral reaction to this little puppet jumping out and stuff. His last question, film you love that everybody else hates. There's actually quite a few, and I don't know if they're hated so much, but overall they just don't seem to be generally as accepted. One of the biggest ones for me was Halloween 3. I love the fact that they tried something different. They took it in an anthology route, and just the story behind it was so interesting. I mean, it's an age-old tale, and, you know, using the Stonehenge to take over the world, but the fact that it didn't have a happy ending, the fact that it was kind of viscerally kind of nasty, I guess that's one of them. A more recent one that I actually reviewed that talking to other reviewers, have absolutely not liked was the Banana Splits movie. I guess I love the kills. They caught me off guard. I didn't expect them. And the fact that they took like Five Nights at Freddy's concept and took it and combined it with a show from the 60s that was for kids, it was really interesting to see that combination, and I would have loved to have been in the meeting where they decided to do that. Ash from Peschel Talks asks, what's the most what the fuck moment in any films you've seen? Well, both of them are actually from movies that I've reviewed, and I think because I've looked at them so closely, they're kind of ingrained. The first one was from Microwave Massacre, and there's a scene where the killer, who's the main character, has this giant jar of mayo, and he's spreading it all over like a naked chick, and then he puts a piece of like fake bread on top of it, and the scene cuts away. There's nothing normal about it, but it strikes me as such a strange little thing. Like, the director said, oh yeah, by the way, we're gonna do this shot involving mayo, and naked body, and a giant piece of bread, and it's a little too on the nose for what kind of movie that it is. So another movie that I reviewed that had a really strong what the fuck moment is from Deathbed. So the bed basically eats flesh and leaves bone, and this guy sticks his hands into the bed, and the bed eats his hands, and it dissolves away his hands, and then he pulls out his hands, and then there's just skeleton left. And he just sits there and stares at his hands for the rest of the movie, and I think about it and I can't help but laugh just because it was just so fucking weird. He also asks, favorite movie you know is bad that you love? So there's been a ton of them, and you, my good man, get another couple of random ones that I love. The first one is called A Guy from Harlem, but it's about this detective, kind of a Shaft-esque detective. And the music and the things that go down and just the 70s dialogue is just great. It's such a fun movie. If you get the chance, I highly suggest looking for it, because it is just the epitome of 70s culture, and it's awesome. Another one that I love is a 70s Japanese horror comedy called House. Again, it's one of those that just kind of encapsulates like that genre. Like, it takes everything and pumps it up to 11. Whether you're talking effects, the acting, just everything is over the top. Even the dubbing is over the top, and I just love it. And then third question there is whiskey or bourbon. I'm not a huge hard liquor person. I tend to go more beer or cider, but if I'm gonna do spirits, whiskey is definitely the way that I go. Alrighty, I have a couple more questions from Jared Buckendall. His first one up is, what fictional post-apocalyptic world do you think is the most plausible? For me, I think Blade Runner is probably the most logical future, but I don't know if you consider that post-apocalyptic. Okay, up next question, best fast food, chicken strips, nuggets, or tenders? I gotta go Popeyes. Those are really fucking good. I just had them here recently, and man, they were really good. Okay, alcoholic drink of choice. I'm a cider fan, and actually any of them, apple or pear or even pineapple is actually pretty solid. Ever walked out of a movie? If so, which one? I am one of those people that will hold out until the last minute for a movie, hoping that it'll be good, or at least end and tie up something that will give it some kind of redeeming quality. The one movie that I walked out on was Epic Movie. It was a spoof from between 2000 and 2010, and the jokes were so dated even then, and it was recent to theaters. It was probably a couple weeks old, and they were just so bad. I'm all for gross humor, and I can handle a lot of stuff, but I couldn't handle it. Let's see, best after-school snack as a youngster. I'm gonna get a lot of gross comments for this. You're either gonna say, okay, I can see that because there are crackers that have that combination, or you're gonna say, oh my god, how the fuck do you still have taste buds if you're eating that? But as a kid, I absolutely loved cheddar cheese and peanut butter on, like, sandwiches. Yeah, I know. Go ahead, laugh. It's all good. Ray, from Ray Are Reviewing, asks, okay, my question would be, why the cartoon avatar and why the name? Is it because your show takes place inside a theater? There's a couple reasons. The avatar, because I didn't want to do just a voice, and I really didn't necessarily want to show my face on camera just because I'm really, really bad on camera. And I guess as far as the name, I'm a huge trivia fan, and I have one of those brains that just picks up random trivia. I can spout out random facts like you wouldn't believe. So I guess the trivial aspect of it comes from that. The theater part, the town I grew up in had a really cool ornate old theater that was an opera house. So that was kind of how I grew up, and I've always had a real respect for those kind of theaters. I don't know, they just enhance the experience for me. Obviously all the modern stuff, the reclining seats, good sound systems play in quite a lot too, but as far as overall looks, there's just nothing quite like seeing a movie in an old theater. So Ashley from the Movie Oracle asks, what are some projects that you're hoping to start or continue with on your fabulous channel? Well, I very much appreciate that. I try to keep the theater looking spiffy. As far as projects go, within the realm of my reviews, I'm hoping to kind of expand out a little bit more into a few more classics, some personal faves, that might be a little bit more on the obscure side, and I kind of want to change up some of the backgrounds that I use, kind of make them a little bit more specific to the movies that I'm doing. So if it's a classic, maybe take it to a drive-in, or I did it last year with Microwave Massacre. I set it up in the concession stand, and that was kind of fun, just because it was a little different. But yeah, that's kind of my plan, is to expand out a bit. The only thing is trying to build those backgrounds and to do them well. Away from reviews themselves, there are a couple things that are possibly in the pipeline, but right now they're not really far enough along to kind of, I guess, bring up in a massive way. I did actually want to ask, and I'm going to have a poll pop up in the corner here. I just did Samurai Cop with Lord Vega, and it was so much fun to do, but in the past I've avoided the more popular riffable classic movies, like Birdemic and Miami Connection and ones like that, because they've been done so well by so many other reviewers. But if you guys would want to see something like that, see my take on it, I'd be more than happy to do them. I guess I just want to know if that's something of interest or not, so do the poll and let me know. I'll put it up on Twitter as well so we can get kind of a consensus. But yeah, those are kind of my plans. Nothing earth-shattering by any stretch at this point. So this last question is actually something that both Jacob from Jacob Anders Reviews and Dan from Dan Jensen Movie Talk asked. And I specifically said when I put this out on Twitter that it was the one question that I really couldn't answer all that well. And the question is, can a 1 pound swallow carry a 5-ounce coconut? But gents, don't worry, I did do my due diligence, and I found an answer for you via Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
It's a simple question of weight ratios. A 5-ounce bird could not carry a 1 pound coconut.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Listen, in order to maintain airspeed velocity, a swallow needs to beat its wings 43 times every second.
I'm sorry, Dan actually changed his question from can a 1 pound swallow carry a 5-ounce coconut to can a 1 pound coconut swallow a 5-ounce carry. And here's the picture that he put with it. I could say as long as the coconut has teeth, I guess. As far as digestion and expulsion, I really am not sure how that would work for a coconut. I don't have the science to back up exactly how that biology would work, but I'm assuming that the answer is probably yes, it could swallow it. But it may die in the process of trying to digest it, so especially being that looks like a plastic carry. Yeah, anyway, I want to thank all the questions from all the amazing people on Twitter. Some incredible reviewers and podcasters in there, and please do check them out. You'll find their links down below in the description. They are all awesome people, and they all deserve your time. Thank you so much for coming out and helping me celebrate my year anniversary. A bit late, but hey, better late than never, I guess. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next review.